Okay, guys, quadratic formula. So this is going to be our next technique to solving quadratic equations. Remind me what I mean when I say quadratic equations. Okay, so quadratic equations are equations with an x squared. They have that exponent of 2 there. Okay, so our third lesson in solving is quadratic formula. You did quadratic formula back in Algebra 1. Okay, you've done it. It's also something that is on iStep. Okay, it's on that reference sheet, and so you can see quadratic formula problems. So, quadratic formula, given ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So notice we are back in the form of equals 0. Then if you're solving for x, quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
I left the door open.
I didn't realize that. That's why it shocked me. So, okay.
Yeah.
Nope, that's good. Okay, so now, I don't know, is there a song you guys know or anything? There are songs that go with this. And I'll show you one later if we get a chance. But there are some songs that you can sing to help you remember it. Quadratic formula, I am 99% sure it's provided on the iStep formula sheet. However, it's just a good thing to know. Okay, you're continuing on to pre-calc and calc. You just need to flat out learn to know it. I don't know I don't remember what I've done in the past on Chapter 4 tests, so I don't know if I'll provide it or make you guys know it. We'll see. But I don't know. I don't remember what I've done in the past. That's the thing. So I need to figure out what I've done.
When will the test be?
Unfortunately, the test is going to be after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
So, because we have this week, and then we have Monday, Tuesday, and that's all we have before Thanksgiving. So, I'm kind of at the position where I think I can teach our last lesson, lesson 4-9, here on the 25th, but we have the 26th, and then we have Thanksgiving. So, the test will probably be in that first week of December somewhere. Christmas break, we go up through the 20th. That will be, final exams will be 19th and 20th. Sure. Yes. We're not going to be here on Saturday anyways, but. Yeah, the 6th.
I can't wait.
Okay, so, a little digression there. So, look at example A. Example 1A. 2x squared minus x equals 4. What are the solutions? What's step 1 have to be here?
Get it to equal 0.
Okay, notice, we're back to like when we're factoring. It has to equal 0. We're doing completing the square, taking square roots, that's when it's not equal 0. But factoring, quadratic formula, make it equal 0. So how are we going to make this equal to 0?
Subtract 4.
Okay, if it's a positive 4, let's subtract 4. If I subtract 4 from one side, bless you.
It's like 1 per day.
Subtract 4 from the other side. So now my left side reads 2x squared minus x minus 4 equals 0. Traditionally, I would say check and see if it can factor. However, based on the fact that I'm in a section and we're teaching quadratic formula, this doesn't factor. It would be a product of AC. You can't get a product of -8 and a sum of -1. So with that in mind, I'm going to move to quadratic formula. Can you identify your ABCs on this problem?
Yeah. ABC.
What is A?
2.
2, because it's in front of x squared. What is B?
-1.
-1, because it's a coefficient of x. And what is C?
-4.
-4. I'm not saying you have to write those down. That's just trying to get everyone in the groove here. So by all means, write them down if you feel the need to. Okay, job 1, fill in that quadratic formula. I would always encourage you to fill in the quadratic formula as opposed to just trying to do your math as you go. So, I'm always going to write x equals or whatever variable I'm solving for. In this case, I'm solving for x. Negative b. What do I mean negative b?
Negative 1.
Okay, so the negative of negative 1. Realize that negative of negative 1 is going to become a positive 1, right? Anytime we say negative b, it just means change the sign on b. And so this really just becomes, can I make that one big plus sign? Positive 1. That looks weird, yeah. Plus or minus the square root. B squared. So negative 1 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 4. All over 2a. So 2 times 2. A couple of side notes. That fraction bar goes all the way across. I would strongly encourage you to write that fraction bar in the 2a before you move on to the next step. I have people that I will sometimes see that they'll try and just, I'll throw that in at the end. The problem is you forget. So I would encourage you to throw it in right away. Okay, let's work on some cleanup. We already did the opposite of b, so the negative of negative 1 is positive 1. Under the radical is the key. What do we know about negative 1 squared? Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Now, if I punch in negative 1 squared on my calculator, what's my calculator going to tell me? Negative 1. Because you need to use parentheses on your calculator, or you can type negative 1 times negative 1, and that would do it. But if you just do negative 1 squared, know that becomes a positive. Okay, and then it's minus 4ac. So, multiply that in any order you want. 4 times 2 times 4. So 4 times 2 is, okay, yeah. And how I tend to look at 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 4 is
8 times 1 is
8. Okay, 32. Now, if I talk signs, there's a minus here and a minus here. What's a minus times a minus? A plus, right? Anytime you have an even number of negatives, it becomes a plus. So this becomes 1 plus 32. All over 2 times 2, which is 4. Okay. If you didn't already do it, some of you may have already done it. Final cleanup. Under the radical, it's going to be 1 plus or minus the square root of, what is 1 plus 32? 33. Always add your numbers under the radical before you try and do any simplifying. Okay, well, what is the square root of 33?
I don't know. Square root, I'll take the thing.
Okay. It's some decimal, right? It's some irrational decimal. And so if it comes out to be a nice perfect square, then we would need to continue. This one does not. And so usually we tend to leave our answers as such. 1 plus or minus the square root of 33 all over 4. Okay. Now, options include, on occasion they'll ask you to give decimals. Could you plug this into a calculator and get decimals? Square root of 33, add 1, divide by 4, and do the same thing, but with a minus sign in there. Okay. But I'm usually going to be okay with this. How many answers do I have showing here? 2? Do we agree? Because one of my answers is 1 plus radical 33 divided by 4, and the other answer is 1 minus radical 33 divided by 4. Okay. So, quadratic formula, you don't get pretty answers. Not usually, at least. If you get a pretty answer, it probably means we actually could have factored. Okay. Questions on this one? Okay, let's try B. X squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 0. First question to yourself, does it equal 0? And it does. So can you tell me your ABCs? A is 1, because it's a coefficient of x squared. B is 6, the coefficient of x. And C is 9, the constant at the end. Remember your quadratic formula? Negative B. What are you going to tell me?
-6.
Okay, it was positive 6, so we're going to use negative 6. Plus or minus the square root of B squared. So 6 squared minus 4 times A, which is 1, times C, which is 9, all over 2A. 2 times 1. Okay. Again, I'm always going to encourage you to write that out. I think it works better there. So negative 6 plus or minus. What's going on under that radical? Do your squaring, do your multiplying. So what's 6 squared? 36. Minus, what's 4 times 1 times 9? 36. All over 2. Now again, if you want to go ahead and kind of skip that middle radical step. What's under the radical next time we go through this? 36 minus 36 is 0. So negative 6 plus or minus, what is the square root of 0? 0. Are you guys okay if I go ahead and write that? You get 0 under the radical, it's just a 0. All divided by 2. Now, in this case, don't stop here. Okay? We just have a 0. Do I have some radical that I don't know? No. So actually go here and give me number answers. Maybe they're fractions, that's fine. Maybe they're not. But actually continue and go a little bit farther. So what do you want to do? Half right.
I'll take that.
What do you think, Carolyn?
Since there isn't really a negative 0, would it just be negative 6 over 2?
Oh, but you also gave me the positive 6 over 2 option. There's no positive 6 over 2.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So it's just negative.
Okay, so this, officially, negative 6 plus 0 is going to be negative 6. Negative 6 minus 0 is going to be negative 6. So that top, no matter whether you add or subtract 0, is still negative 6. So how many answers do I actually end up with? Just one. Okay? And so you end up with x equals negative 3. Now, if you need the visual, you can do negative 6 plus 0 divided by 2. You get negative 6 over 2. You get negative 3. You can also do, negative 6 minus 0 divided by 2. Negative 6 over 2, negative 3. If we had numbers other than a 0 that we're adding or subtracting, that's what we'd want to do. We'd want to set up to like what we did on completing the square sometimes and work out both of them. Excuse me. Questions? Okay, so this is a special case. It only has one solution instead of 2. It just has a repeated solution is what it is. Okay. Let's try C. Okay, Elena says it's equal to 0. That's kind of step 1. What's next? Okay, good. A is 1, B is 4, C is negative 3. X equals, and a big old fraction bar is what I'll give you. What do I start with? Negative what? Negative 4. It's negative b, so negative of 4. Plus or minus a big old square root. What's going under that square root? 4 squared is b squared. Minus 4, parentheses 1, parentheses negative 3. As in minus 4 times a times c. All over 2a, 2 times 1. Okay? Next thing you're cleaning up is the radical. What do you know is happening under that radical? Okay, 4 squared is 16. What else do you know under that radical? Okay. Okay, so I see, my brain works as I see a 4 times 1 times 3. 4 times 1 times 3 is 12. Am I adding or subtracting 12? Because I see 2 minus or negative signs, I am adding 12. And it's all over 2. Now, let me ask you a question. Under my radical, can I go ahead and take the square root of 16? It's a trick question. I'm throwing it out there on purpose.
You take the square root of 16, you take the square root of 12.
Okay. Well, here's the deal. You can't take the square root until you've added underneath. Okay. I can't take the square root of part of a sum. Okay. They have to be put together in order to take the square root. Okay. I'm just kind of throwing out the don't do it type warning. Okay. So we do need to add under the radical. What is 16 plus 12? 28. So I have negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 28 all over 2. Anything else you want to do on this one? Can we simplify it? Well, it's a tricky question.
No, just any. I feel like we're not allowed to take the square root, and if we simplify the form,
Okay.
we can't square root.
So currently, as we are looking at it at this exact moment, we cannot simplify it. Okay? Because I agree 4 divides by 2. However, for you to take 2 into 4, you also have to take 2 into this term. You can't take a regular 2 into a radical. Okay? And there's no number in front of this radical. This 2 would have to simplify with a number in front of this radical. So, for multiple reasons there, we can't. Okay? It can simplify with 4 and 2 can simplify, but it has to be able to simplify with the other term also. Now, we haven't talked about this yet. I don't remember if this is next chapter or it might be January, February time. But do you guys remember anything about square root of 28? Are there any perfect squares in the square root of 28? Yep. Okay, what I'm trying to jog your memory with, is that...
Why didn't we do that with 33 then?
Because there's no perfect squares in 33. Okay, so Keen's question is, why didn't we do this back with the square root of 33 in the first example? Because there's no perfect squares in 33. 28 has a perfect square in it. And we will do a lot of this. There's a whole chapter about this. I can't remember what chapter number it is, but...
Would it be where you break up into 4 and 7?
4 and 7. Why would he pick 4 and 7? 4 is a perfect square. 4 is a number I can take the square root of. Okay? 28, it's 2 times 14 also. But I wouldn't do 2 times 14 because can I take the square root of 2 or 14? No, they're not perfect squares. So, little side note here. I'm going to bring this over here. 28 can be rewritten. The square root of 28 is the square root of 4 times the square root of 7. Because 4 times 7 is 28, right? What do you know about the square root of 4? It's a 2. What do you know about the square root of 7? It doesn't, it stays. So, thus, the square root of 28 can become 2 radical 7. And then we're going to be able to cancel, which is why I said at this moment we can't cancel. Okay. Are most of you going to have this much canceling or this much to do at the end? No. But they're all skills that are there. We just have to pull them back together. So, let me rewrite this as right now it's negative 4 plus or minus 2 radical 7 all over 2. Okay? And the question became, can we simplify it now? Yes, because 2 divides into negative 4, and 2 divides into 2 radical 7 because it divides with the 2 out front. So now, if we go one more step, what is negative 4 divided by negative 2? Negative 2. Plus or minus 2 radical 7 divided by 2? The 2's cancel and you have radical 7. So this answer actually becomes negative 2 plus or minus radical 7. Or square root of 7. Sorry, I tend to say radical 7 instead of square root of 7 a lot. So, okay. That was a brief review there on simplifying square roots. And again, we have a whole chapter about square roots coming up eventually. And we'll go a lot more in depth. Okay? You'll see a little bit about this today, maybe, in homework, but not a lot. Okay, so don't stress. Be more able, can you do the basic quadratic formula problems? That's more my thoughts today. Okay? Let's look at a word problem. Yeah. Yep. Words and math. Your school's jazz band is selling CDs as a fundraiser. The total profit, P, depends on the amount, X, that your band charges for each CD. The equation, P equals negative X squared plus 48X minus 300, models the profit of the fundraiser. What is the least amount in dollars you can charge for a CD to make a profit of $200? Okay, that was my initial read-through. Okay, some of you know exactly what you want to do right now. Some of you are saying, okay, that was a blur. So if it's a blur, you should reread it more times, right? Okay, read it until you can break it down and make sense of it. So if I go back and start rereading, let's see, your school's jazz band is selling CDs as a fundraiser. Okay, just basic given information. The total profit, P. So right there, it's telling me that P stands for profit. Depends on the amount, X, that your band charges for each CD. So X is what? How much the band charges for each CD? Okay. It now says the equation. Are they giving me an equation to start with? Yeah, we love it when they do that, right? So they're giving me the equation. I'm actually going to write it down over here. P equals negative X squared plus 48X minus 300. Now, what does that equation do? Models the profit of the fundraiser. Again, remember P stands for profit. X stands for how much the band charges for each CD. Okay, our question. What is the least amount in dollars you can charge for a CD to make a profit of $200? Thoughts on where to go with this problem then? What do you want to do here? What do you think, Keaton?
And then you have to get
0 on that side, so you minus the 200.
Okay. So they're giving me a profit, yes?
Yes.
They're saying make a profit of 200. What do we know stands for profit? P. So where do we put that 200 in? For P for profit. So 200 equals negative x squared plus 48x minus 300. And they want to know what's the least amount you can charge for a CD. So that's x, right? How much do you charge for that CD? That's x. In order to solve this quadratic equation, we need equal to 0. So subtract that 200 over. Or you can move everything to the left if you want, but I'd rather just move 1 if, it's not otherwise necessary. So now I have 0 equals negative x squared plus 48x minus 300 minus 200 minus 500? Huh? Addition you could try and factor if you want. You can try, but I'll just tell you up front, it's not happening. Okay? You can't get a product of 500 and a sum of 48. Okay? You can try, but it's a moot point at this, So, trying to find x, so I'm going to say x equals. Where am I going with this, guys? Quadratic formula, right? That's the name of the game today. So, x equals negative b. Negative 48. Plus or minus. I would feel sympathy, they're big numbers, but what are you allowed to use? A calculator. So my sympathy kind of goes out the door there, because you guys will just grab the calculators. Okay, b squared, 48 squared, minus 4 times a times c. So times negative 1 times negative 500 divided by 2a. So 2 times negative 1. Okay. X equals negative 48 plus or minus. Okay, remember, under the radical, you got 2 parts to do, right? 48 squared. Calculator says 2,304. Now, check your signs. Am I going to be adding or subtracting the next part? A minus 4, a minus 1, and a minus 500. How many minuses is that? That's 3. That's an odd number of minuses, so it's a negative. 4 times 1 times 500, so 4 times 500 is 2,000. All over negative 2. Okay, so cleanup's pretty easy here. Negative 48 plus or minus 2304 minus 2,000 is 304. All over negative 2. What? Okay, so this is where the last one we did like this. What's the square root of 304? You're going to tell me, you're going to check on the calculator, you're going to tell me it's some decimal, right? Last time we left it like this. Do I get to leave it like this again?
Yes.
I feel like I just
What's the scenario of the problem here? They're asking me for a money answer, aren't they? Is your money answer going to be negative 48 plus or minus the square root of 304 over negative 2? As much as you want it to be, it's not going to be left like this. Okay? So, I do need a decimal here. Now, here's my thought. Money. How many decimal places is money? 2. So here's my thought to make this problem work out the best. Go ahead and do this square root, and let's work with it with 3 decimal places. 1 more than what we're going to need in the end. That way, when we round down to 2 at the end, it'll be more accurate. Does that make sense? If you go ahead and round to 2 now, you could be off a penny at the end, which it's a penny, but still, Math Excel won't like it. So what is the square root of 304 to 3 decimal places? 17.436 is what I have written if you round it. Okay? Everyone knows how to do square roots in your calculators, right? It's the second function on these. Okay. And that's all over -2. So how do I find my 2 answers?
Take negative 48 plus that over and minus that.
Yeah. So we're going to have to do -48 plus 17.436 and divide by -2. And you're going to have to do -48 minus 17.436 divided by -2. So -48 plus 17.436, I would hit equals and then divide by 2, -2. Make sure you know how to use your calculator or whatever calculator you like to use. All I have to do is write the answers at this point. What answer do I get? Shouldn't be negative. It should come out positive. $15.282 is what I have written down. And I know it should come out positive because you're going to have a negative on top divided by a negative on bottom. Okay, what's my other one come out? -48 minus 17.436. I'm going to hit equals. I'm going to divide by -2. 32.718.
Nice.
Are these both answers?
Yes.
What was my question?
Yeah, at least one. So
What is the least amount in dollars you can charge and make a profit of $200? So which answer do I want to give? And that's going to be $15.28. Notice I always go back at the end in a word problem and try to say, okay, wait, what were we even talking about? I've done all this math. I don't remember what we're talking about. I'm as guilty as you guys are. And again, it was because we wanted the least. Quadratic formula coming back to you a little bit. Okay, so here is where we're at. If I really wanted to push, I could probably finish this lesson. So tomorrow no school. Wednesday I will plan to finish this lesson. Okay. Now what I will be talking about on Wednesday when we come back is the discriminant. And notice the discriminant right there is b squared minus 4ac. Okay. That is an important part of the problem because we can find b squared minus 4ac, and what we're going to talk about is it can tell me how many answers. Are there 0 answers to a problem, 1 answer to a problem, 2 answers to a problem?
3 answers.
Okay? Not 3. We're in quadratics. Okay? So we'll talk about that Wednesday. I don't know what day. Sorry. These days are rough. We'll talk about Wednesday, and then you should also have a little bit of work time. Now, in the meantime, I do have something I want to show you guys. You can.
Do I need my calculator?